Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Coffee, Consciousness, and Conversations. I'm Dan, the Happiness Coach. Today I'm having some coffee. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my near-death experience that happened in 2018 that completely changed my life and opened me up to so many different things. And it's a topic I love talking about because it's endlessly fascinating to me. And I feel it's very inspiring and uplifting. And so much gets downloaded to you in an experience like that. And it continues to get downloaded to you because there is no time and space, really. Everything's always unfolding in the now. And when you have something that completely shatters your view of every belief, basically, that you've ever had about life, about yourself, about the universe, it takes you a while to assimilate all of that and get your bearings again, as you may imagine. And I can talk about this for hours and hours. I've spoken at conferences about this. I've been on many podcasts talking about this. But today I wanted to specifically talk about the idea of creating heaven on earth, because I was shown so many things about heaven, so many things we get wrong because we have these limited human concepts. And of course, what God actually is, what heaven actually is, what life actually is, what you actually are, cannot be whittled down into one word or one concept or one book or one video or one lifetime, really. And there's this really, really interesting thing. And after this, by the way, I researched so many other people's near-death experiences because I felt like it helped me, first of all, not feel like I was crazy, but also to help me really feel into like what I was going through. Perspective, other people's perspective can help, even though a lot of it I disagree with. Everybody's near-death experience, just as everybody's life, is unique. But by hearing other people's stories, it helps you reconnect with the part that resonates more deeply with you. Like when you hear a truth, a deep truth, it resonates. And then it reminds you of your own experience and it gives you a little bit more clarity. So sharing stories is very powerful. Having conversations is very powerful, hence this channel. And what I do with people for the last 20 years is have very life-changing conversations with them. Because so often we're not willing to look at what we're saying, what we're thinking, our deeper beliefs, and those lead to certain emotions, and that whole process runs our life, whether we realize it or not. So by looking at those things, you can free yourself. It's like the Buddha says, one of his famous sayings is, he teaches suffering and the end of suffering. In other words, you have to see all the ways in which you're creating your own suffering to then end that suffering, and then you become free, you become empowered, you become happy, you become peaceful, you become in harmony. So to get back to my NDE story that happened in 2018, I was shown that we think heaven is a place. We think it happens after you have left this body. We think it's something you achieve. We think it's something that you are working your way towards, maybe. And that couldn't be further from the truth. The deeper truth that I was shown, and this may not resonate with everybody, but that's okay. This is my truth. I'm explaining my experience. So take it or leave it. And by the way, leave your own comments. I love to hear other people's take on all this stuff. Or I know a lot of people have had near-death experiences, so feel free to share. We are always in heaven. We never leave heaven. We can't go any other place but heaven. What we can do, though, however, because we're so powerful as creators on this planet and as spiritual beings, because, by the way, you are a spirit. You're not a human being who has a spirit. You're a soul or a spirit that has a human body for a little while. So we get that often backwards, right? So the perspective is you're a soul who's having a human experience. That's where I'm coming from with this. And that's what I know to be true. And that's what I was shown. And that resonates very deeply. And since you're a soul or a spirit, you never leave that realm. It's like we're sticking, I always tell people, I've said this many times on different podcasts, it's like your spirit, non-physical energy, is residing in heaven. That's its natural home. Like, that's where we live, actually. That is the real reality, you can say. We stick our little energetic pinky out into this physical world, and that's what we call us. This little pinky fingertip, just the tip of the finger, actually. It's not even the whole finger. Just a little tiny percent of us comes out into this and animates this vessel that we call our physical body, our human body. And it's amazing, it's miraculous that there is this physical reality, but it's an illusion. It's not really who we are, first of all, because there's a whole rest of us in non-physical that's actually who we are, which is eternal, which is untouched, which is perfect, which is beautiful. It's, it's our, what you would call God or heaven, or our connection to all that is. Who we really are is that soul. And a perspective of us that we call a person or a personality comes poking its little finger out into this reality and go, I'm gonna be Dan Hennessy. That's who I am. I'm gonna be Dan the happiness coach for a little while and see what that's all about from this perspective, who has this kind of skin color, this kind of hair, this way of talking, these life experiences, growing up in this part of the world, blah, 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 my whole story. I'm gonna see what that, to play the game through that perspective is like. Or like when you have a dream, you could say this physical reality is a dream where we're forgetting that we're actually still in heaven and that you can't be any other place than heaven. But you can create the opposite. You can create a version of anything. You can create a version of hell. You can create a version of all these different manifestations. And in my opinion, we're here in this time space. My purpose in this time space reality is to help people remember or wake back up to the fact that you're actually still in heaven, even though it doesn't seem that way. And even though you may not have any evidence for that. And I understand that could be a big jump for a lot of people, especially the way the world is, the way it is at this moment in time. Now, I'm not telling you you have to believe this. I'm not even telling you that you should believe this. In fact, don't believe anybody, including me. I want you to just tune into your own life experience. The only way we really learn or really grow is through our own life experience in this physical body. That's why we came into physical bodies. We didn't come here to escape this false dream, simulation, whatever you want to call it, reality, the physical reality, which is really just energy slowed down to create the illusion of being physical, right? Because we now have equipment scientifically that can show that you're actually 99.9999% empty space. It's not actually as physical as we once thought. And now our science is even showing that. What a ironic twist. What an ironic plot twist. So even our science is now saying physical reality is basically an illusion. And what that leads me to believe is, or the reason why I even started this channel, or why I've been working with people for the past 20 years in this kind of way, is remembering that the 99.999999% is actually energy. It's actually your spirit. It's actually heaven. But heaven is so miraculous and so wonderful, and you can call it whatever you want. You call it heaven, nirvana, bliss, your highest timeline, whatever, God, whatever words you want to use, doesn't matter. The point of poking itself out into this physical reality to have all these different experiences is to eventually realize all the ways which we can create our own suffering, and then to choose between suffering or not suffering, to choose between so-called hell and so-called heaven, to choose between the so-called negative and the so-called positive. That's the gift of choice. You have that gift. We all have this plethora, endless, infinite possibility that skews negatively and skews positively. But here's the kicker. Even if you go fully into the negativity, eventually it redirects you back into the positivity, because heaven is the actual true nature of reality. The pure positive energy, just energy. Even if you don't want to call it heaven, or if you're against the idea of that kind of a concept for whatever reason, which is fine, we can all agree, and we all know now, that everything is actually energy. Energy is basically neutral. It can show up positive, it can show up negative, but it's really neutral. You can use it in these different ways. And when you look at that, when you zoom out on that idea, because it can be used in any way you want to be used, that to me is the definition of heaven. It's you can create whatever you want. You can create all the positive spectrums, and you can create all the negative spectrums, and you can dance through all of them, and you will probably experience all of them, because that's why we come into the physical world, to play with all of these different vibrations. And that is what it means to be a free, sovereign being. Like I said in my last video about the month of August in 2026 is all about, are you going to choose obligation, which is stress and fear, or are you going to choose sovereignty, which is freedom and joy? It's all up to you. But how can you know what the choices are if you don't have a wide-ranging experience? In other words, you can't choose heaven unless you know what its opposite is. You can't choose happiness unless you know what its opposite is. You can't choose abundance unless you know what its opposite is. Otherwise, it's not a true choice. So from our heavenly perspective of who we really are, which is always actually residing in heaven, we can't leave heaven. We create the illusion that we've left heaven, called physical reality, and all the things that come with that. And from that position, then we get a choice to honestly and authentically choose what we most prefer. This is what happens most obviously in our physical world through loving relationships. If I make you feel obligated to love me, or if I give you an ultimatum to love me, that's not really love. But if I say you are free to walk away from me, you are free to break up with me, you are free to go do whatever you want, and then you choose to come and hang out with me, you choose to come be in a relationship with me, you choose to come connect with me, now that is love. There was no condition for you to love other than your free will choice. And that is what heaven on earth is all about. The recognition that you have free will choice in all of these things. You don't have to continue doing your job. You don't have to continue doing the relationship the way you've been doing it. You don't have to continue eating the same foods or drinking the same thing. You don't have to continue anything. From this point on, you are now free if you choose to be. Simply by deciding what you actually prefer based on how you actually feel about that actual decision. Now, this might be a lot for some people, so take a deep breath. But simply what I'm saying is, you are powerful because you're actually a spirit, because you're actually always in heaven, because you're actually connected to source. You are God, literally. There's no separation there. That doesn't mean you're deciding all of what God's deciding, but it means you have that same power. You are imbued with that same gift to create. You are the creator. You are an extension of the creator. Because that's the actual reality. That's the actual truth. By making choices that you really feel aligned with from your heart, you are literally bringing that heavenly energy, that heavenly frequency into this physical reality with every single choice, because that leads to your behaviors and your actions in the physical world. When you actually act on the things that you enjoy, that you want to pursue, that light you up, that make you feel alive. And that's what's so fascinating to me. And I'm curious to know, is there something in your life right now? Here's the big question to ask yourself and what you can walk away with this from this video. Are there things in my life that I know I'm feeling drawn to, but I'm letting fear get in the way because I don't think it's going to work out, or I don't think I'm good enough, or some story that I'm telling myself, some belief that I have, which is always a lie, by the way, because the truth is you're the creator, you're in heaven, you're a powerful divine being, so there's nothing that's actually can limit you. And creativity, creating, being the creator, is the divine tool or the divine capability to overcome every single perceived limitation that you think is happening right now. Think about that. So your creative ability to choose and go, I wonder what else I can do. I wonder how I could see this in a different way. I wonder how I can create a solution to whatever I'm perceiving as supposedly giving me a roadblock. That's where your divine nature gets activated. That's where your divine power gets turned on. That's where your passion becomes your purpose. That's where you're getting paid to exist. That's where you are doing what you love, loving what you do, and the universe is conspiring in your favor. That's when you're creating heaven on earth, in my opinion. I'm curious to know, What's that thing for you? First of all, if you're on that path, great. I want to hear all about it because that's going to inspire somebody else and me, and I want that. But also, too, if you're feeling stuck, let me know what you think that is because we can undo that right here, right now. And of course, if you want to dive deeper, I have resources online. I have a free blog. I have paid courses, and I also have one-on-one coaching that if you want to tap into that, just reach out, send me an email, or leave a comment, and we can go down that path. But more importantly, right here, right now, tune into that frequency that you're already in heaven. You're already divine. You're already perfect, even with your imperfections. And by your free will choice of what you really want, what you really choose, what you really feel aligned with, you literally create more of heaven on earth for yourself and by default, everyone else. That's my message for today. Thank you for joining me, friends. I hope you enjoy the journey, and I hope it continues to unfold in the most magical ways. But again, it's all up to you. You're the one saying yes. You're the one saying no. Bye.